Hi folks, Carly here, Chief Exec of Driving Instructors Association. I thought I'd just give you a quick update on things that are happening out in the industry, some of which you will know about, but maybe want a few kind of clarifications on, because sometimes the communications are a little bit confusing or don't have enough detail, and some of things which you might not know about but might be useful to you. So I'm going to kick off with just a quick update on the changes to the Parts 2, 3 and standards check. So some of you may start to be receiving at the moment your invites to your next assessment, and you should be aware by now that there will obviously be changes to those assessments because of COVID-19, designed to keep everybody in the process safe. So we've summarised those on some of our other newsletters and updates to members as well. But this week we shot a video with DVSA which will take people through a clearer illustration of the actual standards checks and part 2s and 3s and how they will actually work in practice, and also that new introduction of that engagement call, what that will look like as well. Today as well, or shortly afterwards, we should also be launching a PowerPoint that walks you through the main changes and answers some of those concerns about that as well. So there'll be lots more information coming out about those assessments if those are coming up for you shortly. One of the important things to consider as you go into your assessment process and you're looking at your overall performances, there is some data that you can get from DVSA which looks at your performance via that of your pupils. So fault analysis is a really important thing to look at in terms of your personal development, your professional development rather, anyway, because although it is your pupils' performance on the day, if over a year you can see how pupils have been dealing with their tests and what things have really thrown them off course and what faults have occurred, that will really help you in developing your training approach as well. So your fault analysis is available, sadly only for ADIs at the moment, because for PDIs you just don't have that track record of faults happening that DVSA can record in the number of tests that makes it relevant. And if you do want to see that report, it's called a Crystal report, and that's available on a special email address that's been made available for you to get this directly, and that's free of charge. So I really recommend that people look into getting that. That's adi.enforcement.analysis.request@dvsa.gov.uk. We'll put that in our newsletters and on the website so you can see that address as well, because I know it's not particularly snappy. So that's about your assessments, your tests of your ability and competency as well. Moving on to what's happening with driving tests. Well, I could go on at length and have done on numerous occasions about what is happening with driving tests and the perfect storm that is occurring out there of both a booking system that's clearly no longer fit for purpose and keeps falling down under the weight of pressure on it, and the need for DVSA to make some investment in a better way of doing that. Never mind, unprecedented use. It was a system that was doddering anyway. And also the fact that just isn't a sufficient number of tests available at this moment in time as well. Things are improving. Obviously, DVSA have committed to increasing the number of tests per day from 5 to 6, so that releases some more capacity. We're starting to see, kind of more examiners being able to come back to work and be able to help deliver that service as well. But still, we're not at all at the capacity that we should have. Some good news coming on that, slightly better news in a moment. But let's just deal with those candidates who were on hold and still haven't had their chance to book a test yet. Their last opportunity to book a test is coming and is nearly gone. So you need to get pupils who haven't rebooked their tests, who are on hold, on this as soon as possible. They should have received a link, or you should have if you booked the test for them this week, giving them priority access to the booking system to select a new date and time. This priority access will be shut off by 11:30 p.m. this Sunday, the 13th of September. This was the last chance that on-hold pupils have to actually book in a test before the system opens to everybody next Monday. Booking system is going to reopen on Monday, the 14th of September. The good news is there's going to be over 375,000 slots available in the system. The bad news is that still isn't anywhere near the level of capacity that you would normally see available in a normal testing year. This is still a really limited supply, folks. So, we can look at DVSA in terms of them still only offering limited supply, and they are working behind the scenes to find other ways to be able to offer more supply to the industry. However, it is what it is, and there's going to be limited supply for some time to come. So we have a responsibility as well as an industry to make sure that what we send forward for test are people who deserve to be there, and are going to make the most of that opportunity. So pupils, we can't stress this enough, pupils going to test at this time must be test and pass ready. They must be ready for the responsibility for holding a driving license and being out there on those roads as an independent driver. We know lots of things can go wrong, even with the best pupil on the day. Nerves that you hadn't seen before suddenly kind of come in on the driving test itself. There's things that are completely beyond control. However, there are still things that, you know, are obvious that are not ready about that pupil before they go. We know sometimes some trainers do also bend to pressure and send pupils to test centre before they're actually ready, or pupils themselves take themselves off to test centre somehow without being ready themselves. We have seen, as the system's reopened, behaviour that suggests some panic buying. People taking slots perhaps that aren't ready and don't necessarily have an urgent need to be licensed as well. And when there's finite supply, we do need to be responsible with what we use. What we can't have in this system is panic buying and toilet roll holding, for want of a better expression. So we need to look at who should be going for tests at this time, and are they absolutely prepared to be able to take that opportunity as well. Because what's happening is there are pupils going to tests who aren't ready at all, and that is starting to come out in the process. DVSA have anecdotally told me that they've actually had to terminate more tests in the first 20 minutes because the pupil is unsafe and clearly not competent to take the test. More of those have been terminated than they usually would do in a normal period of testing. And it's also resulting in a failure rate creeping up as well. So clearly there are pupils who are going into this situation either inadequately prepared, not refreshed enough after not having training through lockdown, and we can blame who we want for that, but the moment that they go to that test centre, they need to be a test standard, or they're pupils who are putting themselves in too soon as well. What I'd like to think is that we're, in terms of also using the test slots responsibly, we were looking at our group of pupils when talking about who's, who I'm going to prioritise in terms of booking a test for, and not just basing it on those who are ready and ready to go, but also if even in that pool of people who are ready to go, we have to think very carefully about who needs that test. Those who need to be licensed at this moment in time, not just want to be licensed, need to be licensed. Those who need it for economic reasons, i.e. their employability, they need to be mobile for employment, they need to be mobile for independence reasons, or college and things like that. So we all have to be a bit responsible about what goes through that system at the moment, because for the foreseeable there's going to be demand far outstripping supply. I just wanted to talk briefly as well about lockdown and how that's impacting testing as well. And just clarify something. I think earlier this week, another national association sent out an email which may have confused people that said that DVSA have imposed restrictions in Blackburn, I think it was. DVSA have not restricted test services so far in any of the locked down areas. Caerphilly, that was locked down this week, doesn't actually have a test, so that doesn't necessarily apply. But testing has continued to carry on when there has been a lockdown in an area. So tests were still running until DVSA advises otherwise. They're obviously looking at information that comes out and assessing that with every single lockdown or threat of lockdown as well. If a candidate is in a lockdown area, by the way, and they cannot make their test because lockdown restrictions locally are making it impossible for them to actually make their test date or get to the test centre, they can change or reschedule that test and they won't lose their fee, but they need to make it clear it's because they're in a lockdown area and not able to test at that time. NASPA's also produced some advice on teaching in a lockdown area, whether you're somebody who is not in a lockdown area but is worried about travelling in and out, or whether you can indeed travel in and out. That will depend on local lockdown guidelines. What measures you should take to manage being in a lockdown area and still deliver training safely and not contributing to further spread of the infection as well. Lockdown obviously is going to affect people's funds, whether that is a lockdown in your region or your lockdown in terms of your ability to teach because you've been identified as somebody who's tested positive for COVID-19, because you're going to have to self-isolate if that happens and not work. Now, in Blackburn and Pendle and Darwin, there has actually been a trial of distributing some funds for people who are locked down. These are only really available to people on low incomes and the self-employed, but they are a very small amount of money. However, every little helps. So watching what happens with that trial, it is hoped that this proves effective and this is broadened out nationwide. So there is something available at least for somebody who cannot work because they've had to go into self-isolation. That amounts to a single one-off payment of £130 if somebody tests positive for COVID-19 and then they have to isolate for 10 days, because that's the period of isolation for the person who has tested positive for COVID-19. If somebody in their household has been exposed, i.e. they will have to isolate because this person's tested positive, they will have to isolate for 14 days to allow for the symptoms to come out, and also allow for them to be less contagious in the 14-day period. So they will be entitled to a period payment of £182. So again, yes, we know it's a small amount of funding, but it's better than nothing. And I'm hoping that this one is going to be rolled out nationwide. I have earlier on in lockdown, in the COVID crisis, written to Department for Workers Pensions, and I continue to, and the Secretary of State, the Treasury, anybody basically I can think of that has influence, to ask what provisions will be put in place for the self-employed and small business owners who will be affected by local lockdowns, but also by the track and trace and testing facilities that we're all encouraged to engage in, that may identify that we've been infected and that we're going to have to not work for 14 days. And for our industry, that means not earning for 14 days. So we're also looking at any other measures. And one of the things we're suggesting is the continued ability for you to be able to tap into universal credit if you're eligible for it, and what other funding mechanisms can we think of that can support those people whose their income will be shot at if they can't work for 14 days out of a month or 10 days. One area of financial support that has been offered throughout this crisis is the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. The second round of that funding opened on the 17th of August. That closes on the 19th of October. So obviously you need to be looking at this if you're thinking of applying for it for the second round. And that funding mechanism and how you apply for it is on gov.uk now for you to be able to start that process. It's a very similar process to last time as well. You will be eligible, if you meet the eligible criteria, to 70% of your trading profits. Obviously, you have to be able to produce trading accounts from 2017 onwards up to the present tax year. Or if you've only been trading for a short while, obviously you have to be able to do at least produce 2018, 2019 accounts. I'm sorry, again, that doesn't help people who have been only trading for a short while. And again, we're still trying to talk to government about what we can do to support those people who are being very financially compromised by this crisis. Again, it's 3 months of payment paid as a single payment. So that's your first tranche paid you for March, April and May. This one pays for June, July and August. It's anticipated, but this will be the last time this grant is paid. If you applied for it the first time round, you could apply for it the second time round. If you didn't apply for it the first time round, you could apply for it this time as well. You have to state, but to my mind, and other financial commentators have made this remark, not particularly have a huge pressure to produce lots of evidence on this one, so don't worry too much about this, but you have to be able to state that your business was still affected by COVID-19 on and after the 14th of July. This will be the case. I wouldn't worry that you can't, that you're not eligible for this because of that. This will be very much the case for rider and driver trainers, because even though testing resumed shortly before that, the industry is still nowhere near where it should be in terms of its ability to get back to normal levels of trading. You're not able to get your pupils up to speed. You're not able to teach as many pupils as you normally would, and you're certainly not able to process as many pupils through the testing, the ultimate goal in terms of the process of driver training as well. So all ADI and rider trainers are definitely eligible in this sense. That's all I've really got, a mixed bag of topics to talk about today, but I hope some of that was useful in highlighting some issues that you hadn't perhaps thought of or didn't know whether there was a solution or not, clarifying a few points about some issues you were completely aware of because it's the bane of your life, and letting you know that we are still, talking to the relevant authorities about what more we can do to help, the industry get back on its feet again, or at least sustain as long as this crisis carries on. Keep talking to us though through the help desk and through tweets and your Facebook updates and your emails to us, and also, keep us appraised of what's going on on the ground out there, so we can keep feeding that back in to the relevant authorities who have the power to do something about this situation, and we should keep that pressure up on them. In the meantime, sorry I can't see you all in person at the moment. We're not able to get out and about as much as we usually do, but I hope you're keeping well and keeping safe out there, and we hope to be able to see you very soon. Take care now.